It's a shitload fast. That's a otherwise not all good. Very, very fast, and compared to, so when I was thinking, 10 gig Ethernet happening. Gig Ethernet between stuff is so, it's like, especially them. 10 gig Ethernet, and the switches are just like, this, painful, new stuff, things don't work very well. So I started looking at options, and this InfiniBand thing, it turns out, is very, very well supported and very, very cheap. How well does it work with CentOS? Out of the box. If you do like a sudo yum group list on any CentOS 6.3, 6.4, or anything like that, one of the groups that will come up is this thing. Screen. Awesome. Hang on. Group list. There's a thing called InfiniBand support built into CentOS. Comes on your DVDs. This group, well, I've got it installed already. But yeah, so out of the box, it is just there and works. So InfiniBand support. So if you've got any adapter, you plug it in, you don't need to go and download weird drivers from your vendor. You install this, it just works. The way that it shows up is it's probably really hard to see. Sorry. So what happens is, if you do like an if config or like an IP address or anything like that, you have like ETH0 turns up for your normal Ethernet sort of stuff. These ones are IB0, IB1, similar sort of thing. You can run IP over this. So in the same way that you would have like an Ethernet connection and you set up TCP and it just does its thing because Ethernet everyone understands, same with this. You set it up, put the settings in. The settings are very, very, very similar to what you get in, sysconfig network scripts, if CFG ET0. It's if config CFG IB0, IB1. So very, very similar, very, very cheap. How fast? Yeah. Okay. At the moment, current generation Ethernet that is starting to come up and actually do things, people are talking about mainstream adoption of 10 gig is happening. It's on motherboards and this sort of stuff fairly commonly in servers. The leading edge is 40 gig Ethernet these days, which is insanely expensive. We're talking, mortgage your house type of stuff, With InfiniBand, the 10 gig stuff is ancient, 10 years old plus, slow. It's, don't use it anymore. The 20 gig is 2 generations back. This is the stuff that you find commonly on eBay. It's £30 for a dual port adapter. So this is cheaper than any 10 gig stuff you've ever seen. It's, and this is reliable as hell stuff. They build supercomputers around this. They make 100,000 of them at a time. When that generation's out, they go on eBay. It's shitloads of these things. The current stuff, 40 gig a second is sort of like, a lot of people already have it. People sort of buy it. A lot of cloud computing places, a lot of data storage places use 40 gig. It's really fast and it's fairly expensive. The current stuff, you pay through the nose for is, about as dear as 10 gig Ethernet. So it's, 5 times the speed, fraction of the latency, same sort of cost as 10 gig Ethernet for production usage, when you're actually buying the real stuff. Differences are you don't get the same cable lengths. If you're using copper like this sort of stuff, 15 meters. So you do clusters per rack. If you need more than that, you go fiber optics. The cables for them, $300 a cable. So, it's, you have to know what you're looking at, So yeah, it's one of those things. Places actually put switches between racks and 15 meters, just because it's still cheaper than 10 gig E and multiple times as fast. If anyone wants the slides, by the way, they can just email me or the presenters afterwards. Just swing them to you. And yeah, once you've got it set up, you set up your IP stack, you wouldn't know it's not Ethernet. It's just transparent. So you can run all your normal applications over it. It just works. What else can it do? This is the really cool thing that sets InfiniBand, which is this, really fast thing apart from Ethernet. With Ethernet, every time you've got a packet in it hitting an adapter or doing anything, it does a bunch of packet disassembly and packet reassembly. If you don't have cards that do a lot of offload, there's CPU overhead. If you've got expensive ass cards that do a lot of overhead, reduction of overhead, it's much better. InfiniBand uses a different technology. It was designed from the very, very, very start as an interconnection between CPUs and buses. It's faster than your PCI bus, and it does direct memory access. So a card here will talk to a card there, and they will write into each other's memory directly. I don't know the security implications of that, by the way. I'm not a PCI engineer. So what happens is effectively that the CPU is not involved. So application over here goes, I want section of memory from over there. The card takes care of it and it just does it. There's no packet fragmentation or defragmentation over the bus. Doesn't happen. The cards just take care of everything. It's really, really, really way more efficient. So when you run like an IP stack, you can run normal IP over this sort of stuff, and it pretends to be IP. So it does the whole packet disassembly and reassembly, the whole bit. But there are modes which are far more efficient that use this special remote DMA thing. So for example, everyone here, you've all heard of iSCSI, yeah? Okay, hands up who's heard of iSCSI, just because okay, cool, this is good. So iSCSI, very, very commonly used protocol. There's an InfiniBand specific one. They can use it with 10 gig iWarp adapters, but it's not as efficient. But this RDMA thing has a specific RDMA version of iSCSI. It's called iSIR. So once you've got the initial connection set up between the two iSCSI hosts and whatever, it pretends to be iSCSI from that point forwards, but actually does RDMA behind the scenes from that point forward. So way, way fast. And there's a couple of different things like that. There's a block storage thing. Has anyone here done stuff with Fibre Channel at all? Cool. So you guys know that, Fibre Channel is very commonly used in sound environments and very low latency and generally fast as fuck. It's just fast sort of thing, right? There's a thing called SRP, which is the InfiniBand equivalent. It's a very, very simple protocol, but it's close to the native speed of the actual InfiniBand, whatever InfiniBand card you've got. Again, you're most likely going to be limited by the CPU or the PCI bus that you've got compared to this stuff. Years ago when I was first getting into this stuff, and the 10 gig stuff was the fastest you could get at the time, cheaply. I was putting like a bunch of 500 gig hard drives rated together, and cheap ass, noisy as hell, like InfiniBand switch cost me like $1,000, and I was actually serving out remote boot images to a cluster of machines from this one central thing, and it was pain in the ass to manage, just remote booting and swapping over IPs and stuff. But it was really, really, really quick, and I've spent most of the like a fraction of the money on the disks in one RAID controller compared to getting fast disks and everything. It's just it works really well. This is SRP thing. It has some disadvantages. This specific SRP thing, very fast block storage. If anyone wants a really quick, not distributed file system, this is a good way. You make SRP on your host, you share it out. You get your clients, which will mount these SRP blocks. It just looks like a disk device that's local to it. You can use multipathing. You've got dual port cards, and put a file system on it. And as far as the client knows, it's a local block device, and it's probably going to be quicker than it going through to a normal hard drive. It's really, really quick stuff. So you can see why I'm a fan of this kind of thing. How cheap is it really? Really, really fucking cheap. Really. I should underline that as well. Okay. So for home and dev test labs, which is my sort of focus thing, ultra cheap. I'll show you in a second. For production buying new, because obviously you can't go and get some eBay card and put it in a production server, and some people can, but if you want to have a decent amount of job life, this is not what you do, right? I've never had to buy these things new, because since I got into it, I've been doing this whole cheap thing. Then I start working for Red Hat, and people just give me the cards to test and stuff. So I've never had to actually go and cost out. It's just, take advantage of what you, anyway. People that are not salespeople but other users, because I do a lot of work with Gluster, with RDMA type stuff now. Other users tell me that the real costs are equivalent or just a little bit under a real world production rollout of 10 gig E. So if you go and talk to, for example, a Mellanox guys or whatever, because Mellanox is the vendor that does most of this stuff, right? If you go and talk to their, whatever their legit registered, whatever resellers are, go to them with a competitive offer, they'll come in under it, like almost every time, and that's for like 40 gig stuff, not 10 gig stuff. So, but if you have a different experience than that, tell me so I know I can update the slides for next time, yeah? It's what I've been told by multiple people, so. However, real world pricing for this dev test stuff, if you want a home network or dev lab setup that's really good, okay. Dual port 20 gig cards like I've got over there. They use this. Now this is the older generation cable. The cables are like 14 bucks. You can get them from China. 14 bucks a cable, so significantly dearer than Ethernet. The dual port adapters are 26 pounds. And these guys have like hundreds of them. They say like more than 100 available.
Is that dual 20 gigs, so 40 gig? Or is that
Yeah. No. Dual 20 gigs.
So theoretically, if you
yes, and
team them, you've got 40
yeah,
gigs.
InfiniBand does bonding very well. I've with the little crappy ass servers that I've got up the back there that have to do it, my own budget, I can't even push one together. So I've not bothered doing the whole thing.
That looks very much like a multi-lane SAS cable. Is it the same?
Now, yeah, so I've got a couple of different cards here. Mellanox was kind enough to send me some cards and forgot to send me cables. So I haven't been able to put these in the server. These are full data rate cards. They use a different connection than these ones, and these are much more expensive. These cards are much more expensive. They'd be like $1.50 or something per card compared to 26 pounds, right? So if you're doing a home setup, ignore 10 gig, go this stuff. These particular adapters, this is the nifty thing. You can run 10 gig Ethernet over these things. These cards, they're called ConnectX-1 cards. HP, for example, this particular card, so there is, you guys can't see it because of the font. The real one will change it. There's an eBay link here, right? And there's an eBay link there, and there's an eBay link there to the actual ones. When I put it on the website or give it to these guys, you just click on them. I'm not associated with any of these vendors, although I've bought stuff from them occasionally, These things are really cheap and they can be turned into 10 gig E adapters. Once you've got these InfiniBand support tools loaded in your CentOS install, there's under etc. RDMA, there's a conf file, and you tell it which mode for which port. So you can say, just leave them as InfiniBand default mode, which is 20 gig a second per port, or you can say Ethernet mode, and it's literally 10 gig Ethernet protocol-wise. They will no longer show up as IB0 and IB1. They'll show up as Ethernet 1, Ethernet 2 after your normal Ethernet stuff. And they're literally protocol compatible to your CX4 10 gig Ethernet stuff. They're literally the same stuff. But why go slower? So I keep switching them back to InfiniBand. And
Mellanox the thing to look for switches as well.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of main companies that do this stuff. So Mellanox is the primary vendor, 80-90% of the market, blah, blah, blah. They go through good stages and bad stages, Like any company, they've had times where they're community friendly and other times they're maybe a bit arrogant. At the moment, they've launched a new community website and they're trying to do good things again. But yeah, Mellanox is the main one. It used to be a crowded market. Then the bubble hit like 10 years ago. This .com bubble, and a lot of them went bust. Mellanox hung in there, and is now that the whole cloud thing's come along with all these data centers and stuff like that. Sweet spot, right? So these places are going, geez, we need to go faster. Let's go 10 gig E. No, let's go 40 gig InfiniBand. So they're going well, right? So that's worked. Other places, like there was a place called QLogic. You probably have all heard of QLogic before. They used to have like an InfiniBand division, and that was getting there, nowhere near as big as Mellanox. Now Intel's gone and bought them, and they're trying to promote an 80 gigabit a second type thing, but they haven't released the product yet. I mean, so I haven't yet touched the adapters, although maybe soon. I don't know. So, but yeah, so there is competition there, and I kind of suspect that it might go into the Thunderbolt, because Intel Thunderbolt, this sort of sounds like it's. So you never know where that's going to go, right? But yeah, Mellanox is the sort of way.
It's more on the switch front. as well as the card.
Yeah. Mellanox is like end to end. I mean, these guys supply lots of supercomputers. Like on the top 500 list, there's like friggin' a large percentage of it is InfiniBand type stuff, and a large percentage of them, like 80%, I'm guessing, will be the Mellanox guys. Like with the 10 gig sort of world, the switches you'll bleed through the nose for in production type stuff. It's not home budget stuff. However, one of the places that Mellanox bought out is called Voltaire. As the sort of shaking out sort of stuff. To connect up. Yep, to connect up. There's a thing called a Voltaire. Used to be a maker of these switches. Mellanox bought them out, a couple of years ago. This is a 20 gig a second switch. I got mine for £180 off eBay. That is unusually cheap, but not by a huge amount. You can get them for like 280. The best one at the moment I can see is like 290. It's in Australia though, so it's going to be like 80 and 90 pounds just to ship over. But it's 24 ports, and these are all straight cut through, as in, even if you load every port to the max, there's no congestion in the switch. They're all completely, they don't do congestion at all. So I bought mine for £180 in the UK. So, if you wait and time it right, you're sweet, right? So if the 20 gig a second doesn't cut it for you, there are 40 gig a second ones, and the real world pricing, if you're looking on eBay again, single port cards are about £90. QLogic, these I should really get and again there's eBay link you'll get. These things are like about £90, single port stuff, 40 gig a second. The cables £22.48 for the cheapest one I could find. In the US, postage £46. Yes, I mean
Is that fibre, that cable?
No, copper like that. Yeah. So the Mellanox guys sent me this 32 port switch and these cards. I'm like, they FedExed it to me, literally, over 3 days, FedEx, big ass box, I've opened it up, gone, sweet. You switch, noisy, by the way, the quad data rate switch is noisy. The Voltaire one I was talking about runs fanless, silent, home usage, good. This was...
So a question about fibre.
Yep.
Do you need special tools to connect?
I've never yet played around with the fibre stuff myself. My understanding is that these particular fibre, these ones, my understanding is the QSFP, sorry.
The fibre is QSFP connector on there.
Yeah, so
It's an active.
Cool. But you can get active copper ones as well. Because naturally the first thing I did when they sent me this stuff without a cable is start looking through the things trying to find it, and they do list active copper as well as passive copper. But I have no hands-on experience with the fibre stuff. So.
There's also fibres available that give you campus range 2-3 miles.
Yeah, the long range stuff and things. So we have no, it's all cool, See, this is area of knowledge I don't have, so yeah.
You shared the information on cost of it and all that. What about the configuration files? Can you share the configuration files, how it's set up, etc.?
Yeah, okay. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. If not, okay, so okay, so let's see, network. So my crap typing, when no one's watching, it's all perfect? Not really. So we've got on the display there, I've got an ECH0 normal, that's the inbuilt on those boxes at the back, and the two InfiniBand ones. So if I go like a more if config, you'll see an everyday stock normal Ethernet configuration file. Sorry. Cool. Yeah. Is that far enough? Oh fuck. All good. Okay. So that's your normal Ethernet, right? If we do the same thing for an InfiniBand one. Okay. So hardware address. You'll notice that unlike an Ethernet one, which is like 6 bytes, InfiniBand ones are 20 bytes. The ifconfig tool doesn't show up the correct addresses because ifconfig can't deal with 20 byte, like what the fuck, sort of things, It'll show the first 6 and it just doesn't show the rest. If you do IP address, like IP, IP though does show it up, the big ass long one. So, yeah, question, yeah.
With a 20-bit MAC address, what's the behaviour, with a 20-bit sort of like MAC address,
Yep.
what's the behaviour around IPv6 over the InfiniBand interface?
I'm one of these people that hasn't really got into the whole IPv6 thing. It's on my list of to-do options at some point, but I haven't. Somewhat, no, yes, I no idea. So, like that? Ah, okay. Okay, so this IB stat shows the cards that it finds in the server. So it's got 2 ports, right? So the card type, just like it's an MT, that's its name, 2 ports, the firmware version on it, and you can upgrade the firmware thing on these really easy. Normally when you get a card off eBay, it's going to be an old firmware. The way to update it is bloody simple. You just look up its PCI address, tell it the new firmware, done. It doesn't fuck up. People go firmware. No, this is fairly safe. So we've got 2 ports, both active, both linked up, both 20 gigasecond. I could bond them together to do 40 gigasecond, but realistically, I've got the cheapest friggin' CPUs I could get in these things. Like, we're talking Pentium G2120s, or we're talking dual CPU, 50 pound type CPUs. They can't push anywhere near what these things can do, right? So slow things. Anything else? Anyone else to ask before I actually go back to the slide? No, all good.
Maybe if you need to route traffic, so do you use between cloud nodes and quantum network, or do you have the switch vendor providing routing capabilities?
Even gone into anything close to having enough problem and enough traffic to actually do that. I know that there are some really advanced topology types of things where you can say, there's like Taurus. I'll put it differently. If you've got one switch like mine, it's just, it doesn't matter how much traffic, you can't overload a port, they can't congest, right? Depending upon how you hook switches together and where the bottlenecks are, if you don't put enough cabling between them, you can obviously get congestion points. The routing in a fabric from point to point, it can be told to use certain different algorithms. There's like there's all kinds of different algorithms that do this. The PhD people will know it. I don't even need to look at them. So one switch, there's no routing algorithm I need. So, does that help? Google will find most of this sort of stuff. So how are we doing for time? Sorry, I don't look very well. So. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm just making sure that I don't run 90% of the way through and, and run out. Okay, so that's the cables. So the quad data rate stuff is more expensive, but if you need it, you need it. But yeah, this one port single quad thing, you might as well just get 2 and bond them together. But and then you get failover and redundancy. But demo. Oh yeah, I was just doing that sort of. Just look, as a quick example, look, the CPUs and boxes that I've got at the back. Yep. Definitely. InfiniBand, you don't need a switch for. So if you've got like this 26, pound card in each of them, and cables, you don't need a switch. You go point to point, you can run IP on them, and you've effectively got a very, very low latency type connection that, as far as anything knows, might as well be 10 gig E. In fact, you can set them to 10 gig E mode, and they'll actually run at 10 gig E. Yeah?
Well, you can do that, and there's no... you can do that, and what you need is called OpenSM, which is an open source subnet manager.
Good point.
The switch runs a subnet manager which looks after all the topology in the fabric. And there's a perfectly good open source one, which probably ships
most of the switches. Yeah. The caveat there is that in an IP world, a lot of us we're all familiar with DHCP servers, right? Which, if you don't have an address on a network, if it's in DHCP mode, it can give all the Ethernet boxes an IP address. InfiniBand Fabric requires its equivalent, a thing called a subnet manager. It's like a DHCP server. you can get switches that have them inbuilt, like the one there does. It doesn't really matter if you don't, because the code that most of these switches run is just a subnet manager. Comes with CentOS anyway. It's a package called OpenSM, and it's developed open source type stuff, and it actually works really well. A lot of the subnet managers ones are actually embedded Linux OSs running OpenSM. So so in a situation where you cable two together, you can run OpenSM on one or either of the boxes, and voila, it's all good. It's an ultra cheap way to have really fast connectivity. I'll do some quick demos of, as fast as these boxes go, you'll sort of see the sort of differences. Okay, so I have here, if we've quickly got time, I'm trying to go back through my history where I was, okay, let's cheat. Let's go ncftp put file cluster Ethernet 0 home. So I'm going to just transfer Fedora whatever. This is ncftp put. It just pumps stuff across. I'm using FTP instead of SSH because SSH bottlenecks just by CPU and stuff. Assuming I've got that right, I've set that up to go from one box over the Ethernet interface. So just as a comparison sort of stuff. Because it's connected through a switch which is right next to it, it's going at 111 megasecond normal Ethernet. So it's actually pretty quick for a normal Ethernet sort of stuff. And you can do 3.5 gig in like, what is it? 40 seconds, 50 seconds. You do a terabyte, it's going to take a while. So, yeah. Doing the same thing over the IB interface, it'll just go straight over the top of it. You can see the difference. And this is not, the thing, it's like going at 460, 490 megasecond. So much quicker. The thing that's limiting that is the SSD. Okay, which is, it's actually coming off an SSD and going to an SSD on the other end. So, and look, cheap ass boxes, the SSD was probably the most expensive part, and, I'm doing cluster testing and stuff. I want quick latency, I get bored. So yeah, so remember, this is cheaper than any 10 gig sort of thing. So thus, this is why I do sessions like, welcome to InfiniBand, it's cool. Anyway, but yeah, so we can see that consistently 300-400 megasecond and the right buffering on the other end and the reading off this one is what slows it down. If I had double fast, 2 SSDs like in RAID 0 on the other end, you'd be seeing double that speed. These particular per port and these things can go to nearly 2 gigasecond per port. I've got 2 ports on each thing for these, the disks are so slow in comparison. And InfiniBand, oh yeah, so this is about the end. There are a couple of places with really good, fucking no links. Okay. If you need this, I'll get it to these guys. There's a place called Serve the Home. These guys are a US forum. They have tons of guys that build high-end home gear. But it's just guys that are really enthusiasts. It's InfiniBand. It's stuff with 52 SSDs. Like we're talking like a Samsung 840 Pros, at once. And they do like, 111 gigabytes a second scanning for scanning databases. I mean, insane shit, just cause, But these guys know InfiniBand pretty well. So the link under that is the Mellanox community website. They've launched a thing using Jive software. It's a very community-oriented sort of stuff. Generally friendly community. So if you get old cars off eBay and go and have problems, ask here. You'll probably find someone that can say, this is how you fix it. And Intel and various other. And yeah, I'm happy for people to buzz me, except, okay, Justin at postgresql.org is me, so you can just, get me on that, or jclift at redhat.com. And as you'll notice, I keep a reasonably close eye on eBay pricing, just because that's just me, right? And so if you want to know what is what, I'm the person to ask for that sort of thing. And that's it. So, question. Is anybody going to even think about check out this InfiniBand thing now? Yes? Okay, so maybe 1 or 2. Sweet. Cool. All good. Thanks,
Any
guys.
questions? Oh,
sorry, yeah. Any questions? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would like it to still be working, but yeah, I mean, come over and, it's all good. If you want to see what the cards and stuff actually look like. Yeah.
You said earlier that the I/O latency was excellent. Do you have any numbers?
Sub-millisecond. So, so one of the good things is that even under load, it's sub-millisecond. So it can get, if you have too much load and stuff, but look, these particular cards, right, these are the new single port ones. These are the full data rate, 56 gig a second. A PCI 3 slot is slower than this card. Okay, so you can't physically, they make cards with dual slots, right? But in your big ass servers with, these big ass IBM ones, they put lots of single slot fuckers in just because you can't push enough, this moves more than the PCI bus. So if you've got a problem with latency, and the latency goes down. So if you want to move data seriously, fast, this is the way to do it. Google will get you tons of good metrics and stuff. Gluster Devel, because I do Gluster work, we'll have guys comparing numbers and stuff. So, yeah, all good. Any other?
Sorry, just to be cheeky, there's a barely used Cisco SFS 7000D 24-port DDR InfiniBand switch for 205 quid on eBay at the moment.
Yeah.
Noisy, quiet, worth buying?
Extremely noisy. Extremely. When I first bought one years ago, I got the single data rate version of that thing, thinking, oh wow, magic is going to arrive, and I put it in. I used to have a 27-inch cabinet at my home in Australia. I put it in and turned it on, and it is so fucking loud that you cannot think straight, even after moving the cabinet several rooms away, closing all the doors, and then, no. Good for a data center. Not even if you've got a basement.
Supermicro twin nodes sound like jet engines, so maybe I'll just
because none of these places decides to publish noise figures on it. On the Mellanox community forums, I asked exactly this question, going, I used to have one of these top spin / Cisco SFS 7000 ones. Does anyone know quite ones suitable for home usage? And it's one of the more active threads. And the thing that came out is these Voltaire ISR 9024 DMs, and there used to be a lot of these on eBay, and they're rare as hen's teeth, strangely enough, afterwards. For real, it's that they've all disappeared, because once you've updated the firmware, with the fan in, it's like, it's noisy but not real noisy. It's like, the noise of that fan there is probably about, so it's not too much of a distraction, maybe a little bit more than that fan, so nowhere near what an SFS 7000 is. Those things are insane. But with the new firmware, you take the fan out and it rises up to about 56, 58 Celsius, because I've checked this, and it doesn't get worse than that. So you just take the fan out and it's all good. So which is what's happened to the one over there, and it runs fanless. It's all sweet, happy, no problems. And it's even in their brochures for the later ones. They're just said to run fanless, and they do. So, yeah.
If the noise drives me crazy while I'm experimenting with at the back, if the noise drives me crazy, can I just get dual port devices and daisy chain a series of systems together? Is the software good for that, or do I have to have great routing fun with?
I'm not sure what you mean when you say dual port devices.
Could I? Oh yeah, if I've got a single port device, I can put A to B.
Yeah.
Well, if I've got dual port, B to C, C to D, and then I don't need a switch.
It would technically be possible, but it would be a pain in the ass. I mean, if you
like me, really.
If you were, anyway, if you were seriously wanting to do that, you could do it. But not recommended. Look, if you're on a budget and you're like, I can't afford this £800 pound switch because that's the only one that's on eBay at this time, go nuts. But you'll be incrementally adding traffic as you're going across the links. So, yeah.
One sec.
Sorry.
Your top end said, was it 56 gigabit?
Yeah.
Is that the end of the road then? Or what's the roadmap for speed? Do you know the future plans?
Intel at the moment is trying to get, they say they're trying to get 80 out the door to compete with Mellanox's 56, because they're trying to, just dick size number thing, it's, Mellanox is saying that their next thing is 100 gig a second. It's, I don't know when that's going to arrive. I don't get any privileged information ahead of time. the Intel guys are saying something more than that. And, you know, I have no idea. So there is a roadmap, and it's generally they try and one up the guys doing like Arista that are doing the 100 gig Ethernet and stuff. You know. So, but yeah, so that's current production. That's, you know.
I was just going to say, because my interest coming here was to an extent Ceph as well.
Yeah,
and I mentioned about Isilon clusters, and it looks like with this in a machine, I could make a fake Isilon basically.
Look, I work for Gloucester, and I haven't, you know, and I haven't done Ceph stuff, but you know, at some point I should. But in theory, it should work brilliantly well with it, you know. So try it out and freaking let us know. Yeah. So yeah, format your Isilon cluster when no one's looking, right? And just so, free BSD version. Anyway, all good.
Is there any more questions, or we've got it covered?
Cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
one more.
Yeah, you were discussing cabling. It's worth saying that if you're going to do this professionally, or within you have to pay attention to the cabling, and I think that goes for 10 gigabit Ethernet. If anyone's deploying 10 gigabit Ethernet, the signaling rate on the cable is enormously high, and it's very critical on the cables. And if you're going to get a lot of these things wired into a switch, find somebody that knows how to do cabling. Don't get a bunch of monkeys to do it. The bend radius in those cables is very significant. You do not want some idiot coming in and cranking it.
So it can do that safely. That's how they come from the dude in China.
So, that's about as far, you know. There is a bend radius.
But you wouldn't,
And there's a very famous the FDR InfiniBand is known to be very choosy on the cable types.
Cool.
There's been installations which have failed. And there's a very famous case, not of FDR, of a Dell supercomputer in Imperial College, where they had to rip out the entire cabling plant and replace it, which didn't get down very well. So
did they resell them on eBay for, like, you know, DDR or QDR or something?
Yeah, no, it's the one thing that will trip you up in a commercial environment is the quality of the cabling, and
how people wire it into the racks.
Yeah, as you can tell, my experience is like home dev lab and just how to get a home lab fast. But
what would be the maximum length I could run with?
I buy 1 meter cables, so I know 1 meter works. The guys behind you that do the cabling stuff would know.
Cabling, sorry.
Yeah.
Cabling lengths for the copper. That's, as you say, it's the same as 10 gigabit Ethernet. So I thought it was 25 meters. It's 15 meters. It's machine room size. The optical ones will go short range fiber will go 300 meters, and the Luxterra active ones will go campus distances 2 or 3 miles.
I remember seeing that they've got some long range ones, but they're stupidly expensive. I mean, like, you know, 10K and 100K.
So if you had to do
one connection and like, you know, house prices, you know.
If you have to do replication to a failover center, they're possible. And I think your latency is going to be. I don't know if you can bridge it over. I don't know if you can bridge it over dark fiber. I'm not sure. I don't think you can. I think.
I know it's 5 nanoseconds per meter is the latency for light, and so that's what they actually calculate in when you're looking at the long range stuff. They say, like, you know, point whatever nanoseconds, and then like another 5 nanoseconds for every meter that it is. So you can actually work out how many nanoseconds it's going to be. Nanoseconds, for real. All good?